On Secretary Mnuchin's crypto crackdown. Julia Boorstin has Facebook's response. Wilfred is covering Citi earnings, and Ylan Moy is watching the debt ceiling debate. So let's begin with Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin's comments on crypto just moments ago. Eamon Javers was in the news conference. He joins us now with the details. Eamon.
Yeah, Morgan, that's right. The Treasury Secretary taking to the briefing room here at the White House, the rarely used White House press briefing room these days, to really put a marker down of skepticism about this idea of cryptocurrency and specifically about Facebook's plan for its own cryptocurrency. I asked the Treasury Secretary about where things stand on the regulatory side with the Fed, and then also whether or not he ultimately wants Facebook to be in this business at all. Here's what he said.
Jay Powell and I meet weekly. So there are these discussions going on. They will continue to go on. Again, to the extent that Facebook can do this correctly and can have a payment system, correctly with proper AML, that's fine. They got a lot of work to do to convince us to get to that place.
So Morgan, the Treasury Secretary there, saying that Facebook has a lot of work to do, suggesting the bar here in terms of regulation is very high. There's been a lot of speculation here over the past hour or so. Why was Treasury Secretary Mnuchin doing this today? What was it about this day that brought him to the briefing room? And what I'm told in talking to some people around the White House is that this is the Treasury Secretary very much responding to what the president wants here in terms of Facebook. This is shouldn't necessarily be read as a response to regulatory agencies around the world who are also making moves on cryptocurrency. This is very much the Treasury Secretary and the President of the United States being on the same page here, Mark.
Eamon, thank you very much. Let's bring in Julia Boorstin with Facebook's reaction to Mnuchin's news conference. Julia.
Wilf, a Facebook spokesperson telling me it, quote, anticipated critical feedback from regulators, central banks, and lawmakers around the world. And the company says that's why they, quote, announced Libra a year out from its anticipated creation so that we could have those conversations. Now, Facebook pointing me to Calibra chief David Marcus's post saying that they will work with all relevant stakeholders. And in Marcus's prepared congressional remarks for tomorrow, he says Libra will be regulated by the Swiss government and that Libra, as well as Facebook's Calibra wallet, will comply with all U.S. laws. Wilf, back over to you and Morgan.
Julia, thank you. And of course, we got Facebook testifying on the Hill tomorrow. You just referenced that, Julia. Keith, what do you think? What's your reaction to the Treasury Secretary's comments today? And what does this do in terms of Libra actually becoming a reality in the next year?
How cynical do you guys want me to be?
Very.
Okay, fine. So think about what monetary authorities do and what they do with the money supply, controlling the money supply, and how it indicates on interest rates. And really, I think they sense cryptocurrencies. It's not just the Fed, it's the ECB, Bank of Japan, probably Bank of China, where Bitcoin has been illegal for some time now. They sense a movement with cryptocurrencies where they will quickly lose control of money supply and therefore their monetary authority and how they dictate economic policies and how it conveys down to us. If you read Facebook's white paper, which I have a copy of right here, the Libra white paper, really what they're talking about is they now have 2.7 billion monthly active users, and a large majority of those overseas are unbanked or do not have access to financial services. So this is about a democratization of giving them access to those financial services, not only being able to bank, remittances, payments, but also doing it in a very affordable way, which the existing systems are controlled by one party or just a couple of parties, and therefore makes it very expensive and out of reach for a lot of people around the globe, including some people here. So I think Facebook is pushing back a little bit on this. It'll probably be a stable coin, and I think they'll get to the end game.
I mean, the question, of course, even if this is focused on emerging markets, is whether they will proceed with it if the U.S. says they're going to be regulated, maybe not quite as a bank with a bank charter, but that sort of thing. Mnuchin's saying that every user would have to have AML, anti-money laundering work. Would Facebook proceed with it? In that instance, it would seem unlikely on the surface of it unless they think this is the future of the company as opposed to the broader social media aspect.
Well, that's right. So the bad knock that's happened is that it is true that Bitcoin was used for illicit activities when it first came out, when bad actors around the world figured out that they could launder money or buy illicit drugs with it and use it as the currency of choice. But you also got to bear in mind, like if you go to any Bitcoin ATM today, which there are several hundred here in the U.S. and around the globe, you have to go through an AML KYC process, anti-money laundering and know your customer process before you can even transact in that. So those systems are already in place. I think this is a way, and if you read the Libra white paper, Facebook says out loud that they want to work with the regulators. One of the problems with cryptocurrencies in the past is they tried to do it in the shadows of the banking system. They say we want to work with the regulators, and again, I think this is a way, again, based on the tweets from the president, that Steve Mnuchin, as Treasury Secretary, is doing his due diligence, saying we are not going to lose control of this, we're going to get ahead of this. I think that we'll get to a resolution at some point.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one to continue watching as the
No
story
doubt.
develops.
No doubt.
It's a big week for bank earnings.